Gaming backlogs are kind of annoying, and realistically they will never ever go away. The constant feeling of wanting to clear up the backlog creates a lot of frustration because no matter who you are, you cannot resist a good game sale. Adding more games to that backlog. The only way we can truly blow off steam is by knocking the lights out of our backlog. A one-on-one ring match where you take on each game separately and beat the ever-loving crap out of them. This is exactly what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna be fighting my gaming backlog. I'll be identifying their strengths and weaknesses just before I knock them the fuck out. Now let's see what the first game's gonna be. It's very rare for a game inspired by the Dark Souls series to be actually good, but Another Crab's Treasure, it's up there with the likes of Lies of P and Neo of being actually worthy of the title Souls-like. And you want to know something? It's one of the best games I've played this year. I even went out of my way to 100% it, which is very rare for me to do nowadays. I have to really like a game to bring myself to do absolutely everything in it. Okay, I'll stop glazing it and actually explain why I enjoyed it so much. So Another Crab's Treasure has you playing as a crab called Krill, and Krill is a bit of a hermit. Do you get it? Because he's a hermit crab? Well, Krill hasn't been paying taxes on his shell home, so a literal loan shark comes and takes it away from him, and you spend the rest of the game searching the depths of the ocean to get his shell home back. And when I say the depths of the ocean, I mean the deep, dark depths. You know, that scary part with shit like vampire squids in it. I hate those things. There is more to the plot, which I'm not going to spoil too much of, because Another Crab's Treasure is definitely one of those games that I highly recommend playing for yourself, especially if you enjoy action RPGs like the Souls games and Elden Ring. Unlike the Souls games though, you won't be finding a huge array of weaponry to use for a variety of different builds in this game. Krill only has one weapon at his disposal, which is this fork. You know, it's a handy tool, you know, it gets the job done, but this weapon isn't what makes this game's combat unique. See, the ocean is littered with rubbish, which is scattered around everywhere, and this rubbish can literally be anything. Krill can use these as a shell that he's able to use to shield himself from attacks, acting as a shield. And these pieces of rubbish don't just act as a fancy looking shield. Each one gives him a special ability he can perform during combat. The trade-off is the shells can break easily, so you're constantly running around arenas trying to find a shell, forcing you to think on your feet and adapt to whatever resources you have around you. It's good shit, I really enjoy it. Sometimes after fighting a main boss, you can also acquire a special ability that doesn't require a shell, and some of these feel kinda busted. And the devs probably knew this, which is why they go on a hefty cooldown after using them. You can equip 2 of these, and they can all be upgraded. Oh, and there's also a skill tree you can upgrade that gives you new moves and abilities, expanding the combat even more. One example is being able to put the shell you're using onto the fork to create a DIY hammer. Is good shit. I mean, it's inspired by this game. Unlike Dark Souls though, there's an assist mode in Another Crab's Treasure, where you can give Krill a gun. It one-shots everything, including bosses. You can't make this shit up. There's even an achievement for using it. Speaking of the bosses, some of these are absolutely horrifying, which is something you wouldn't expect from a game that looks like this. There's also roaming bosses that are very willing to kick your teeth in, like Pagarus the Ravenous over here, who roams a big open area and is not afraid to scran you if you step off the beaten path. I love how the bosses look incredibly imposing by just looking hyper realistic. The contrast between them and the cartoony friendly characters really makes an impact. The enemies also go for this hyper realistic style too, and it's all for a reason. It's because they've been corrupted by the pollution that surrounds everything, and when they get corrupted by it, they become hyper realistic and attack anything on sight. It's a funny way of giving a reason as to why the enemies are hostile, but this is the ocean. You don't really need a reason to explain why this place is dangerous.
Jack, you help us win this. I'll know you're ready.
Okay, so I didn't go into this game expecting much. Neither critics or the general audience really enjoyed it, and it was a huge flop when it came out back in 2023. EA obviously weren't too happy about this, laying off half of the staff weeks after the game's release, which is truly a shame because Immortals of Aveum surprised me. Despite the fact I couldn't actually finish it due to it just breaking down on me, seriously the PC port felt like a mess. I wasn't even running it on max settings. I had DLSS on and it still stuttered loads. These are my specs just to put it in perspective. If I can run Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart at max settings flawlessly, I should be able to run this. So what is Immortals of Aveum about? You're probably wondering. Truthfully, I don't actually know. From what I played, the story felt like Marvel tier slop, not to mention how insufferable the characters and dialogue were. So I ended up just phasing most of it out with the cool dial-up sound playing in my head every time a cutscene played. Despite all of this, I did actually enjoy the game. At least, I enjoyed what I played until it fully broke on me and I couldn't play anymore. The concept for it is really cool. It's basically a first-person shooter, but instead of guns, use a bunch of different ranged magic instead, with different colored versions acting as a variation of different guns, like the red one being a shotgun and the green one being more automatic. Switching between these feels instant and the flow of combat felt incredible, which is something I was not expecting because the footage shown off for this game did not give the combat any justice whatsoever, making it look slow and downright boring. Probably because it's a first-person shooter and they were showcasing it using a controller, which does no FPS game any favors. Do you remember when Doom Eternal was revealed and they had to show it on mouse and keyboard right after to make sure you could see the difference? And that difference was literally night and day. Like, it looked so, like, some FPS games become completely different depending on what you're playing it on. And Immortals of Aveum is no different. So yeah, I'm honestly struggling to think of things to even say about this game. I mean, I like what I played of Immortals of Aveum, but damn, I had no idea what was going on during the development for this, and it's honestly quite a sad sight. If you've been watching my videos for a while now, then you're well aware of my opinion on the Outlast series. If you're new, well, first of all, welcome, I hope you're enjoying the video so far, and I'd like to let you know that I fucking hate Outlast. Despite being a huge fan of horror games, I really despise what Outlast did to the genre, creating a trend of run and hide trial and error games with an abundance of random ass jump scares that don't feel necessary at all. Okay, thanks game. Due to the trial and error nature, any form of fear you feel completely evaporates as you go through the same section and set piece over and over again, being chased by and hiding from the same British football fan looking fucker because his favourite team, the Renthorpe Wankers, lost 1-0 and he had a few too many pints of Stella while watching. Well, I have some news for you. The most recent game in this series, Outlast Trials, is actually pretty sick and I've had a lot of fun playing it. Yeah, I know, crazy, right? Outlast Trials does something new for the series. You can play it with up to 3 friends. I only played with one other friend, my mate Ibrahim, you know, the guy who told me to play a Plague Tale Requiem if you remember from the previous video, so yeah, I couldn't have chosen anyone more fitting to play it with.
Hey, look, check out this guy, Sam! Look at this guy! Look at me doing! Down.
I didn't realise how much more enjoyable the Outlast formula could become just from it having co-op. It's completely made me do a full 180 on my opinion on this series. Like, I actually kind of want to go back and try the other 2 out again. Maybe not Outlast 2, that game fucking sucked. The game is built around playing with others, which means you have to work as a team. I wouldn't recommend playing it with randoms because you need communication to solve some of these puzzles. I also appreciate how Trials is laid out too. You're not just running down a linear path being chased and jump scared occasionally. No, instead you're put into an area that you have to navigate through and learn while solving a variety of different puzzles that let you progress to accomplish a task, with you having to run for your life once you've finished it back to extract out of there before you're murdered by whatever psychopath is lurking around. There are 3 main antagonists currently. This creepy ass cop dude with a taser, this horrifying lady and her sock puppet with a drill in its mouth, and the new character, your average Redditor. These three aren't the only threats you'll be facing in the levels though. There are other psychotic people who are frequently waiting around the corner just to jump you. The developers got creative with the ways they want you dead, having enemies disguise themselves as your friend and having them run up to you and shank you, as well as spray your face with some sort of drug that lowers your sanity. And when that sanity is gone, an entity called the Skinner Man comes after you and drains your health until you're dead. Yeah, shit can get a bit crazy and completely terrifying. Now, Outlast has always been a really fucked up game, but not in the best ways. It just kind of feels like it's trying to shock you for the sake of it. Trials, on the other hand, takes it to another level, with you having to brutally murder and mutilate people just to progress in some missions. Like this one where you have to slowly and painfully saw this guy's legs off in a church.
His wing is worrying me.
I really have to be careful what I show with the footage because I know for a fact I will be demonetized instantly if any of this shit is shown without censorship. Even visually, the levels are uncomfortable to be in. Like this one amusement park ride which is based around gums and teeth. And there's a section within it that the puppet lady has turned into a workshop where she stores her skinned faces. The ride is also called the Root Canal, by the way. This game is great. Okay, I need to take a break from fighting through my backlog, so let's get someone else to help me out here. Now, personally, I can't think of anyone better than the channel with the freakishly long name to help me out. Take it away.
Hello there, I'm the channel with the freakishly long name. Nice to meet you. Or maybe you already know who I am, which is going to cause me sleepless nights of overwhelming anxiety. Or maybe you've just seen me on YouTube, then, you know, that's a bit less creepy. Any case, Prox has been so kind to ask me to talk about backlogs, something I've been very passionate about getting through. So much so that I think that this is the year where I managed to beat the most games in a single year. 59 to be exact. Yes, I'm 10 short off of the funny number, but... Shut up! Any case, throughout my backlog clearing journey, I've played and beaten quite a lot of games, but the one I'm actually the most proud of off of this list is none other than 2015's Bloodborne. Yes, I don't think I need to give Bloodborne any introductions, and if I do, then I assume that you actually know how grass feels, so congratulations. It's the game that has the most accurate depiction of modern-day London. It's the game that predates Elden Ring's Blight, where From Software started to incorporate furries, and most importantly, it's the game that Sony just refuses to release on modern-day consoles and PC, because I'm assuming that they just hate higher frame rates as much as they hate the Helldivers 2-player base. But despite all of that, I think that this is still one of the best games I've played both in 2024 and in general. And the fact that I was actually even able to beat this game speaks volumes about how good it actually is, because I'm not usually the best at Souls games. Everything about this game, from the dark gothic streets of Birmingham, Yarnum, coupled with the deep, slow, methodical combat that Souls games are best known for, and just also in the ways that they were able to spruce up the formula, like focusing more on aggressiveness versus being a little bitch boy in the Souls games hiding behind an oversized ironing board, and how they focus on other things like the weapons now being a more quality over quantity thing, despite the fact that I think I stuck with the Hunter's Axe and Ludwig's Holy Blade for pretty much 90% of my playthrough. And the bosses as well, whether it be something early on like the Cleric Beast at the beginning of the game or the one reborn later on, they are still without a doubt the biggest highlights of this game and where most of your challenge is going to stem from. Except for Mikolash, he can get visceraled up his ass like the pigs in this game for all I give a shit. But yeah, with all of that out of the way, I'd still 100% recommend you give this game a go. That is, if you still have a PS4, or if you don't mind playing the game still locked at 30 FPS. Why do you hate us, Sony? Any case, thanks for having me on, Prox. Goodbye.
Say, fellas, did somebody mention the door to darkness?
Kingdom Hearts 2 is great. Just like the original, it's a game full of magic and whimsy, and again, I felt an intense amount of nostalgia whilst playing through it, despite the fact I'd never played it as a kid. I was too busy playing shit like Scooby-Doo Mystery Mayhem. Did you guys know this game was made by the Dead by Daylight developers? Yes, crazy. Kingdom Hearts 2 is exactly what a sequel should be. It improves on almost everything from the original. Better combat, better voice acting and direction. The combat especially, like going from the first to this one is like night and day. It's so fluid. It's probably the best combat in the entire series. Hell, even compared to some action games that came out recently, it feels better than. Really makes me wonder why they didn't just stick with this one in the future games. But we'll get to that in another video. I have many thoughts about this one that might surprise you. Just like with the original game, you're exploring a bunch of Disney worlds with Donald and Goofy at your side. They got more experimental with the worlds too, basing some off of live action films like Pirates of the Caribbean. I can't tell if these models look good for a PS2 game or if they're absolutely horrifying. They also paid homage to some of the ancient Disney animations like Steamboat Willie with my favourite level, Timeless River. Having everything being in black and white and even having their voices sound all old-timey and shit. I would say Kingdom Hearts 2 has around the same amount of levels as the original, which is odd considering it's double the length. This is because there's a 2 in the title. It's times 2 everything, wowie. I'm joking, this game's length is mainly because of the fact you have to go back to almost every single Disney world twice, which is actually one of my main problems with Kingdom Hearts 2, and it's why I actually prefer the original over it. After a certain point, the game just starts to feel really dragged out. Like, yeah, there are unique areas you go to within the worlds on your second trip, but it doesn't help with the fact the level design just has nothing to it. You're going from corridor to corridor, killing enemies. There isn't much exploration to be had, not to mention how empty the worlds feel. And to add on to this, you don't have that same sense of adventure exploring these worlds, and I do kind of get it. They were clearly proud of this combat system they crafted and expanded on, and they probably wanted it to be the main focus. I mean, people did complain about shit like the platforming in the original, so yeah, I completely get why they did this. Regarding the story of it, shit gets really complicated with this game. In fact, you need to play 2 separate games before this one just to have a clue as to what's going on. Especially with the intro, having you play as a different character called Roxas for a solid 4 hours, doing mundane shit. It's not the worst section in the world, but it makes me never want to replay this game again. I do like Kingdom Hearts 2, it's a great game and I understand why it's considered a classic, but I just prefer the simplicity of the original. Here we go, another VR game off the backlog. Now, if you've been watching this series back to back, then you might recall me saying this. We got another VR game. Expect way more to be on these backlog videos because I aim to beat at least one every month. Yeah, that didn't last. I do plan on covering VR games though because some of these are absolute bangers that deserve to be talked about. And Vertigo 2 is no different. It expands so much on the original. It's like night and day, it's crazy. From the gunplay to the level design, hell, even the variety of enemies and bosses is vastly improved. Just like with the original, it's heavily inspired by the Half-Life series. And the sequel fully embraces that inspiration in not so subtle ways.
Oh, what's that piece of junk doing here? Ridiculous. We wouldn't possibly have you fight deadly aliens in a high-tech facility using a crowbar. That would be absurd.
Not really an issue because, I mean, one of the best VR games you can get is a Half-Life game. Just like with the beginning of the original Half-Life, Vertigo 2 has an outbreak of aliens within a lab that causes everything to go to hell. On your journey, you explore different sections of the lab as well as random ass alien dimensions, and you can never predict what's gonna happen in these dimensions too. There's one that has you scaling a giant tree, fighting sap, defending a sacred relic of theirs that you need to get. There's an area where you're in the middle of a war between robot cultists and robot Russians, and you have to choose a side in the war, giving you a completely different boss and outcome for the mission depending on what you choose. You also get a unique weapon. I chose the Russians because you get this AK, and I just thought it was funny wielding an AK, a boring ass weapon in this sci-fi setting, taking on all these weird ass aliens and robots. Literally, I could go on about how amazing this game is, but I don't want to spoil anything. I would say this game is worth getting a VR headset for, and I would easily put it up there with Half-Life Alyx as one of the best VR games you can buy.
What a goddamn clusterfuck.
Yeah, that basically sums up Atomic Heart. It becomes a weird-ass hybrid open world game midway through, and I dropped it there because it was very boring. There we have it, 6 more games off my backlog. I'm slowly making progress and I'll get there eventually. Okay, that's a lie, I won't. This series will never end because I keep buying games. Let me know in the comments what you've been playing recently from your backlog. Did you enjoy the game you played, or did you end up dropping it because it was stinky ass like Atomic Heart? I would love to know, and thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you all in the next one.